We know the air is unfit to breathe and our food is unfit to eat. As if that's the way it's supposed to be. We know things are bad, worse than bad. They're crazy.
Silence! The great and powerful Oz knows why you have come.
You've got to say, I'm a human being. God damn it. My life has value.
You have meddled with the primal forces of nature.
Don't give yourselves to brutes, men who despise you, enslave you, who regiment your lives, tell you what to do, what to think, or what to feel, who drill you, diet you, treat you like cattle, use you as cannon fodder. Don't give yourselves to these unnatural men with machine minds and machine hearts.
It's time to buckle up for making sense of the madness.
And who loves you? And who do you love?
Hey everybody, Jason Bermas here, and it is time to talk quantum computing, artificial intelligence, and we're going to be focusing on an individual known as Geordie Rose. Now, the reason I decided to do this is because, number one, we talk a lot about AI here. We talk a lot about automation, humanoid robots, digital twinning. And in the past, we've talked about quantum computing, but we really don't emphasize enough how artificial intelligence and quantum computing are completely integrated. And on top of that, the narratives that surround quantum computing is this idea that we are accessing the quote-unquote multiverse. I think that is incorrect. I think that is the wrong interpretation of this. And quite frankly, when that is promoted in a manner as scientific fact, I think it degrades our biological realities, our spiritual realities, our reality that we have one run through this whole thing. We have one body, one soul, and we are not part of basically this video game idea that infinite possibilities are actually happening, and we're basically down to ones and zeros. Because if you live in a multiverse, you essentially live in a metaverse, and you could also make the case for the Johnny Nonsense simulation theory. I think they're often one in the same, the meta and multiverse. In fact, one of the things eventually I believe humanity will be sold on via the quote-unquote metaverse and this idea that you are going to hook in or maybe even upload your consciousness is that you will be able to live an infinite number of realities for an infinite time period. That will be the sell from these people. And I think ultimately, obviously, you're not even going to be able to upload your consciousness. That's completely incorrect. In fact, anything that will be uploaded to these systems will be a cheap imitation of yourself. We're kind of going to show you that today. So, Geordie Rose is really this interesting character that started off in the scientific realms, got into entrepreneurship, and his company D-Wave is the one that partnered with Google with their quantum computing facility, Ames Research Center, the whole nine. All right. And there's this famous clip of Geordie Rose talking about this multiverse. Now, we're going to play that clip. However, I do want to say this. Every time I have played that clip, I get a copyright strike or a copyright notice. So I may have to edit this out later on. We're not going to play it full screen, but we're also going to have another clip on humanoid robots via Geordie Rose. Because Geordie Rose is also the individual that stated that this artificial intelligence that we're creating, it's not the Musk summoning the demon. It's the clip that we are going to create beings that are essentially aliens. They are not us. And I actually agree with him on that they will not be us. In fact, this large portion of a speech that he gave recently in the last 2+ years on AI, I actually agree with a lot. I mean, a lot of what he says. But Rose is also somebody that wants to live forever, really believes that we can achieve that as human beings, and he's hooked himself into the group of people that I think that he believes he can biologically live forever, that it's not going to be some kind of a simulation of his. We're going to be talking about cryogenic technology, and not just in the sense of transhumanism, but we're going to be talking about how cryogenics is also being utilized in quantum computing. You know, that partnership with NASA and D-Wave. Remember those initial D-Wave boxes with quantum annealing? The reason that they had those boxes was to get the temperature to basically the vacuum of space. And that so much of this research involving quantum computing and so much else is done in low Earth orbit on the ISS for a reason. Okay? Again, all these technologies, all these sciences integrating with one another. Also got a clip from Carl Sagan that we're going to play where he talks about questioning science and how important that is, and how it's not really science unless the general populace not only questions these things, but has a general education on science, which unfortunately we just do not. And this is, interviewed decades and decades ago with Charlie Rose. So, thumbs it up, subscribe, share, ring that bell if you're new. Remember, all my documentary films are free down below. And let me say it, I need your support. This is not just me saying, hey, please, if you like the program, consider supporting it. No, there are no paychecks. This is it. We're in the run to see whether or not I'm going to be able to continue doing this. Believe me, I wish that I had a gig where they were booking guests and I was on 5 days a week, multiple times. Those ones are fun and they're much easier. I know a lot of you guys enjoy what I do on these types of broadcasts, so that's what we're doing. $5, $10, $15, it means the world to me. Big donors, thank you so much. If you don't like the Buy Me a Coffee, there are other links down below. Let's get into it. Scientists use quantum machine learning to create semiconductors for the first time, and it could transform how chips are made. So, I wanted to start with some of the latest news on quantum computing specifically, because there are different types of quantum computing. The idea that quantum computers are doing the work of commercialized computers, that doesn't seem to be at least represented in any type of scientific papers. I would imagine that even if that were the case, a lot of that would be classified, and we'll get into that in a moment. But when we're talking about utilizing quantum computing to build and create semiconductors, you're now getting into that realm of quantum computing coupled with artificial intelligence. See that right there? By tapping into a hybrid blend of artificial intelligence and quantum computing to now create the type of hardware tools through hardware and software. Okay, so this brand new story, we'll see about it, but like D-Wave, again, another brand new story, has started their strategic development initiative for advanced cryogenics packaging. All right, and they talk about quantum annealing in this, and the other process that I was not familiar with, whereas there's the annealing architecture, and then it has its fluxonium-based gate model architecture. All right, D-Waves believes the superconducting bump bonds will be key to the scalable control of the fluxonium and to interconnectivity in multi-chip quantum processor architectures. And this, not only semiconductors, right, but it's talking about PCBs or printed circuit boards. In other words, your motherboard, right, also being developed by this. Scaling both annealing and gate model quantum computers requires high-performance packaging. We believe this strategic initiative will allow us to further extend our leadership position in quantum systems technology development and support our exciting and aggressive product roadmap on the path to 100,000 qubits. And the more qubits, supposedly the more processing power. And we're actually going to play, because D-Wave has their page up, their latest ad in the last couple of months, the D-Wave Advantage 2 system. So you can see their most advanced, at least their most advanced quantum computer that is commercially available outside of whatever government partnerships they may have. Before we get into that, I want to point out that in 2019, Google and NASA achieved quantum supremacy together with these D-Wave systems. Now, this is six years ago. We haven't had a lot of white papers. As we're going to show you with Geordie Rose, I think this was in 2024, they said that they have accessed what appears to be parallel universes. And again, we hear this. I think this is hype. By the way, this was the end of 2024. So this article is about 7-8 months old, right? They're constantly selling you on this. But have they really done it? Can they access one where Steve Irwin is still alive? Ha ha ha, we love the crocodile hunter. Now, to point out, how much we get from Google itself, right? Google, NASA, quantum computing. We should do a live one of DuckDuckGo, see if we get anything else. So these are the tools, and I just want news, and we're sorted by date, okay? Sorted by date here. So we have that article right there from 2024. It's the last article we've gotten on it, by the way. And then summer of last year, so almost a year ago, and that's just top 10 quantum computing companies. Again, another article in 2024, 2023. All right. So, just talking about the initiatives. Almost nothing. Almost nothing. You see what I'm saying? There's 2019 right there. Almost no articles whatsoever. Let's see if DuckDuckGo gives us anything better. But it shows you the lack of media interest. It shows the lack of public knowledge and interest, right? First thing at least comes up here, which it does with the other one. But let's see if we can get news. Let's see if there's anything news like we don't want anytime. Yeah, I guess we do want anytime, but I guess this one doesn't give me that same option. How quantum could supercharge Google's AI ambitions? Well, at least we got some different ones in here, right? These are, quantum computing is having a moment, but the technology remains futuristic. Atlas Robot gets superhuman 3D vision in major Boston Dynamics upgrade. And that was about 2+ months ago. And we have reported on this, the coming convergence of AI and quantum computing and NVIDIA chips. So I'm going to play the commercial pitch from D-Wave. Then we're going to play some Geordie Rose clips. Then Carl Sagan. Then the meat and potatoes, which is Geordie Rose talking about artificial intelligence and what it really is. And this is where, again, I tend to agree with the guy a lot more than disagree with him. But again, here is the pitch from D-Wave themselves.
Today marks a historic day as we announce the general availability of the D-Wave Advantage 2 quantum computer. The Advantage 2 system, our 6th generation quantum computer, is our most advanced and highly performant system yet, offering customers energy-efficient computing to solve computationally hard problems. Advantage 2 is capable of solving problems that are beyond the reach of classical computers. Key features of the Advantage 2 system include 20-way qubit connectivity, which enables embedding of more complex problems, higher energy scale and lower noise for higher quality solutions to complex calculations, higher coherence for faster time to solution, energy-efficient processing power as the system uses just 12.5 kilowatts of electricity, hybrid solver integration, supporting problems with up to 2 million variables and constraints. Advantage 2 is commercial-grade, production-ready, and built to address real-world use cases in areas such as optimization, material simulation, and artificial intelligence. And it's easy to get started using Advantage 2 today. Customers can access the Advantage2 system via D-Wave's Leap real-time quantum cloud service, which is available in 42 countries and offers 99.9% availability and uptime, sub-second response times, and SOC 2 Type 2 compliance to meet enterprise needs and security requirements. For hyperscalers and supercomputing centers that want to integrate quantum computing into their infrastructure, the Advantage2 system is available to purchase for on-premises ownership. At D-Wave, we're helping customers realize value from quantum computing right now, and we believe the Advantage2 system represents a remarkable achievement in delivering on that mission.
So, like I said, there's the chip. You're looking at the box. You notice that most of the sales are in the virtual arena. What do I mean by that? You don't have the hardware on premises. You want hardware on premise, that's a whole other thing. And most AI is going to be kept that way. So you never actually own anything. You're constantly paying and paying and paying and paying. And it's not a flat rate either. There's no flat rates. No, you're paying every time you use it. It's like every time you want to go get a Coca-Cola, put the little coins in the thing. It's very frustrating. Yeah, like, if you are able to purchase something on site and you're at that level, you're also going to be part of the CAIO program, the Chief Artificial Intelligence Officer program. Now, we're going to get into synths and synth city, in other words, humanoid robots, in a minute with Geordie. But for those that maybe have never seen this clip, we're going to play it. And again, I'm going to try to play it in a little box and not get it taken down. But this is Geordie Rose almost a decade ago, like 8-9 years ago, talking about accessing parallel universes. But once again, I don't buy it. I think that is the wrong interpretation. You be the judge.
The world today trying to build these machines and understand them. And I'm going to tell you why. In my last 15 years of working on this type of stuff, I found that scientists divide up into two categories of zealots about this field. The first half are people who are absolutely entranced by the physics of these things. This quote is from a respectable scientist, in fact, one of the founders of this field, that may look a little strange to you who don't follow theoretical physics, but there is a very clear prediction that our most successful theory of nature makes, and that is that there are an enormous number, mind-bogglingly large number, of parallel realities.
Again, show your work. I'm not buying it. Not buying it, David Douche.
Real as this one, that have different consistent histories. So imagine a world where all of the laws of physics as we know them are obeyed, but different decisions were made along the way. Different decisions at the level of tiny microscopic particles, different decisions all the way up to what you chose to eat for lunch, and whether you chose to come to this session or not. Quantum mechanics makes a very specific prediction that all of those are as real as the thing that you remember.
Don't buy it. Because again, if you get into this idea of the multiverse, I mean, you're literally talking Rick and Morty stuff. All right, so there's a world out there where Jason Bermas is king of the world. He's conquered the world. There's also one where I'm in prison for doing the worst of the worst things. There's ones where I've never existed. According to these people, there's ones where I'm not even a human being. I'm something else. In fact, we've played the clip of, their partnership was kind of this Google promotional thing from a decade ago, and they talk about you being a lobster. You're basically a lobster thing.
And this is bizarre, because we don't see those other things. But science has reached the point now where we can build machines that exploit those other worlds. And quantum computers are perhaps the most exciting of all of these that we have within, or almost within, our grasp right now.
So you notice another big thing is this idea of over-promising and under-delivering. And he says, we've got it or almost in our grasp, right? They're constantly changing things. let's show you though what they're planning on doing. Now this is Geordie from about 6 years ago, so about 2-3 years after that, talking about synths and synth cities, creating humanoid robots. Okay, and we've talked about the Musker-Do, the Musker-Nuts, talking about how many humanoid robots he expects to be on the planet. A nightmarish amount. Okay, a nightmarish amount. And I would argue even what Geordie Rose says here is pretty nightmarish as well. So here we go.
This is as much about one of my work colleagues, Nadine, as it is about me. So you're going to see Nadine throughout the presentation. We're going to talk about her and what she represents or what we hope that she could be. Nadine is a new category of thing that doesn't exist or hasn't existed before, which we think of as synthetic humans, or abbreviation being synth. So a synthetic human, in the way that we think about them, are machines that with increasingly high fidelity mimic the human, not only in form, but also in function. So for example, being able to understand the world the same way we do, being able to navigate the world the same way we do, understand things the same way we do, have the same emotional spectrum, the same feelings of self. Every attribute that you label yourself with, every feeling that you have about who you are, we want to be able to create these kinds of things in machines. And of course we can't do it yet, but as a North Star, it's what guides the work that I'm doing now. So the Nadine is just one robot, and the broad arc of the story I'm going to tell you is about transforming Vancouver into what you can think of as a sanctuary city for this new type of categorical thing. Now, the way to think about what we're trying to do with Vancouver is, say, in this room, if you look to your left and look to your right, I encourage you to do so. Look at the fellow humans in the room. What we want is for that experience to be such that in Vancouver, one of the two is a synth, no matter where you go. So millions of these machines living, working, being in Vancouver as a test bed for the beginnings of a new type of interaction between humans and technology.
Think about what he just said. First of all, he gave the false connotation that these things could be living. He gives the idea that they could have the same type of feelings as we do, and that is just not a possibility. You know, Kurzweil, again, when he wrote The Age of Spiritual Machines, he said that these things are going to be extremely compelling, and they will be convincing, and they will convince us that they are conscious. They will convince us that they are having spiritual experiences. That doesn't mean they are. And in fact, I would argue they will never be conscious. And that is a big lie and a large trick. And the idea that you would want to live in a city where every other thing, every other being, I don't even know you call it, you know, this a being, is going to be a machine that is an imitation of a human, that's extremely frightening to me. And it needs to be questioned. And yet, these narratives, if you will, of the multiverse often go unchallenged. And they often are accepted by the general populace. Well, that makes sense. Oh, simulation theory, that makes sense. And they don't challenge it because they don't even have a baseline idea of general science and when to question it. And that's why before we play like this 14-minute clip and keep popping in with Geordie Rose and actually what I think is more of a direct and honest assessment of the current situation via AI, and this speech is from like a couple years ago. Carl Sagan here with Charlie Rose discussing science and the importance of the general populace having just a baseline education of science.
Two kinds of dangers. One is what I just talked about, that we've arranged a society based on science and technology in which nobody understands anything about science and technology. And this combustible mixture of ignorance and power, sooner or later, is going to blow up in our faces. I mean, who is running the science and technology in a democracy if the people don't know anything about it. And the second reason that I'm worried about this is that science is more than a body of knowledge. It's a way of thinking, a way of skeptically interrogating the universe with a fine understanding of human fallibility. If we are not able to ask skeptical questions, to interrogate those who tell us that something is true, to be skeptical of those in authority, then we're up for grabs for the next charlatan, political or religious, who comes ambling along. It's a thing that Jefferson laid great stress on. It wasn't enough, he said, to enshrine some rights in a constitution or a Bill of Rights. The people had to be educated, and they had to practice their skepticism and their education. Otherwise, we don't run the government. The government runs us.
And do we have a government for and by the people right now, or was he just spot on? Obviously, the COVID-19 84 situation exploited that unto a new level. So that's why I would tell people, remain skeptical not only of what I'm saying and what I present here, but of course, of what's being put out there, not only in the mainstream, but the alternative, etc. I know it's a dirty, dirty phrase, but really do your own research. So now, this is Geordie Rose, keynote presentation, talking about artificial intelligence. And there's a couple points here where he shows something and they don't actually show it, but it's just like a GPT model. And, you know, in the last couple of years, the GPT is writing speech, the voice morphing software, the image creation, video creation has now become much more mainline. So the stuff he's talking about is now kind of in the distant past. But here we go. Here's Geordie Rose talking about artificial intelligence. And remember, this is the guy that just told you that there's a multiverse. This is the guy that just told you about synth cities and sanctuary cities. This is the guy in another speech talking about creating beings that will be alien to us.
Second thing I wanted to say, though, it's related to the AI stuff that I'm going to be talking about. The world is moving at a very quick pace, and sometimes it can feel like you're being swept along by this torrent. It's just a river, and you feel sometimes like things are happening to you. Today I was on the modern font of wisdom that is Twitter, and I happened on something and I wanted to read it to you. And this is mostly for the young folks in the audience, but I think everybody needs to hear this. Everything around you was made by people that are no smarter than you. And you can change it, you can influence it, you can build your own things that other people can use. The future isn't something that happens to us, it's a thing that we create. And one of the reasons that I was drawn to the entrepreneurial life, I suppose, is that I wanted to create a future that I wanted, not let someone else do it for me.
And honestly, I think that everything there is actually very profound. I think that we all, in a way, create our own realities. We've talked about the gateway process document, talking about the nature of reality, and the military and the Central Intelligence Agency delving into the nature of that reality and essentially saying that, you know, it's not us dealing with reality, it's us creating the realities around us in a sense.
So I'm not gonna ask you to dance, but I am gonna ask you to do something before I start. What I want you to do is reach out and grab, now do this mindfully, which means I want you to think about what you're doing and the feelings that it evokes in you, okay? So, deep breath. Reach out and grab your glass. Pick it up. Notice how that feels. Take a sip. Really feel the experience. Kind of let the feeling, sensations flow over you and put it down. Okay. Now I'm going to show you some AI stuff. But before I do that, I want to talk about what you just did. So there's a puzzle that I'm going to talk about which is related to AI, and it's kind of like what's missing from AI, and there's a lot of things. But one of them is what you just experienced. So you, as a person, have the entire world within you in some literal sense. Your mind can understand and appreciate and think about the entire universe around you, potentially. Emily Dickinson puts this better than I could. Your brain is wider than the sky. You have multitudes within you. And that thing that you just did, when you felt like a thing, was your brain thinking about what you are in that context. So this business about like what you feel like when you're a thing is a very interesting thing, and I just wanted to put that out there, and I'm going to come back to this.
I know there was a lot of thinging there, but I actually agree with everything he said. He's talking about the experience, the actual experience of drinking that water. He's going to get into it. Now, he's going to show you, and we're not actually going to see it, but he's going to talk about basically the artificial intelligence that is commercially available now and was commercially available on a smaller scale then, and how that does not equate to the human experience that they just had.
Okay, now I'm going to show you some AI. And I'm going to do it for kind of two reasons, but before I show you this, I just want to preface this by saying, first of all, nothing you're about to see was generated by a person. The words were generated by GPT in response to this query. So I wanted to make my life easy. Please, GPT, write me a speech. The sound that you're hearing is a fake voice that I made of my own voice. It's a voice clone. It's not me speaking. And the image is of a co-founder of Sanctuary, and it's also completely and utterly AI generated. So nothing you're about to see had any human intervention in creating whatsoever.
And by the way, again, we're not going to see it, but he purposely, although it's his voice, and he prompted the GPT, apparently the video is of a female colleague.
Except for this prompt. Here goes.
Female colleague.
Good evening, distinguished guests, esteemed inductees, colleagues, friends, and families. I'm both honored and humbled to be standing here tonight as your keynote speaker at this prestigious Business Hall of Fame dinner. This evening is a celebration of exemplary leadership, hard-earned achievements, and the relentless pursuit of success that has brought all of us here together. We are in the presence of trailblazers, innovators, and game changers who have not just dreamt, but dared to shape the world of business with their ingenuity, grit, and integrity. Tonight, we acknowledge and pay tribute to their remarkable journeys, their unwavering dedication, and their lasting contributions to the business world. So, whether you are here to honor someone you admire, or to receive the accolades you rightly deserve, or even just to draw inspiration from this remarkable gathering, let us rejoice in the spirit of this occasion. I extend a warm welcome to each and every one of you, and I invite you to join me as we embark on an evening filled with insightful tales of perseverance, innovation, and the relentless pursuit of excellence. Thank you for your attention, and here's to an unforgettable night.
And look, more and more of that AI slop is available. I know people that are constantly using ChatGPT, constantly using it for things like that. I mean, South Park parodied that, 2-3 years ago, probably around the same time that Geordie Rose gave this keynote presentation.
So, how many of you work from home? If you do, how do I know you're actually you? How do I know you don't have 100 jobs? This took me 5 minutes to do. And the tools are easy to use for anybody. By the way, a reason I used my voice and Suzanne's face was just to show you this wasn't actually like a real recording. So AI is a complicated thing, and its implications are unclear. But at least as of today, I have two pieces of advice for you. One is you have to understand this stuff well enough to use it, and these things are easy to use nowadays. It's basically like speaking and typing. There's not really much to it. There's no programming anymore.
Once again, in agreement, Okay? Ignorance is not bliss, and you should at least know this stuff. Just like Carl Sagan was talking about science, well enough to use it, therefore at least understand some of the aspects of it.
So you need to be able to understand how to use them and what they are. But the other is you got to put them in context. Now, part of the reason why I asked you to do that glass thing is I'm going to ask you now a question. Do you think the digital thing I just showed you is capable of feeling what you felt when you picked up that glass? Does anybody think that? The answer is clearly no, right? That gap is not just a small thing. It means that the AI systems that we build today are not human-like at all.
At all. Zero. Again, as much as they're trying to build an imitation of consciousness, of humanity, he's going to talk about consciousness in a moment, that is not what we're seeing, okay? And we won't be seeing for some time, and I don't think ever.
They're pretend. They're fake. But they're fakes that are getting much better. They're tools right now. Okay, so that's now. Tools, you should learn to use them, like your calculator. But what about 10 years from now? So this guy here is Jeff Hinton. He is a Canadian, at least. And he is, in some sense, the guy who kicked off this deep learning stuff that took us to where we are here a few years later. So he was a staunch advocate of the position that you should try to build brain-like machines, but it was 50 years away. And he recently quit his post at Google because he felt like the systems that they were building were going to surpass people, not in some weird future time, but now. So what does that mean?
Well, once again, you know, when we talk about Dennis Bushnell, and remember Bushnell, NASA, Google, NASA partnering on all of this. You had that Google whistleblower talking about the AGI that he was working with. He basically said that they have now built these machines that can supersede humans in most tasks. Okay, it's not off in the future. It's not science fiction. It's actually taking place right now.
He thinks that anything you can do can be done better with a machine. Like not in some vague science fiction future, but with the types of technology we have now. So his claim is that machines like what I just showed you there, the digital thing, are on the path to being able to feel like you do. First person experience, sentient, and so on. So in some ways, I agree with them, but there's a big caveat. There's a big difference between being able to do things, like what I just showed you there, like write a speech, and be something like a person. So this conscious experience thing, the thing that it's like to be a person, is not the same thing as being able to do things. So we build, these are things we build. We're building machines that will be able to eventually do anything that you can do. I'm nearly certain of that. There doesn't appear to be any problem with doing that. It's just a matter of when. By the way, just as an aside, things like GPT and these kinds of tools can't actually affect the physical world directly, but robots, of course, can. It's what they're for. So we're, again, leading the world in British Columbia in this new thing, just like we did in quantum computing. Okay, so I kind of made this distinction playing with this notion that AI and capability is not the same as feeling like a person or being a person. They're different. And in the philosophical side of the study of these types of systems, there's a guy named David Chalmers who's quite preeminent, and he coined a phrase called the hard problem of consciousness, and this is this thing I'm talking about. Let's say you were the only person in the world who had that thing that you felt when you picked up the glass.
So, you know, this is also one of those theories out there, and I think it's a Johnny Nonsense theory. Essentially, the theory goes like this. Everybody else is an NPC. It's a non-playable character. You're living in your own reality. I'm the only thing real. You would be the only thing real, and everything else would be some kind of a construct that doesn't actually have these feelings. I disagree with that, obviously. But again, one of those theories that's out there.
And everyone else is just an automaton. So they don't feel the same way you do. They're just what he would call a philosophical zombie, is what he calls this idea. That you can be performative of tasks and appear to have all of the things that surround experience, but you don't. So how do you know? And this is a particularly vexing problem that those of you who've studied philosophy might have come across before in some guise or another.
Yeah, it's constantly asked, but I would argue that it's the best interpretation for these things that we are creating, that they will never, ever, ever experience the same things that we do, even if they quote unquote believe it or are programmed to believe it themselves, which all of it is essentially programming.
But for me, it's more than just a weird philosophical abstraction. Now, many of you may know or not that I started out my life as a theoretical physicist, and the thing that I was very interested in was quantum mechanics. The history of that field is very interesting, but one of the most striking things about it is that back around the turn of the 20th century, leading physicists, the type of people who are the keepers of the truth, believed that everything that could be known was known. And there was nothing left to do but calculate to the 6th decimal place. Now that might seem ridiculous nowadays, but back then it was a firmly held belief. And do you know what? They were almost right. There were just a couple weird little things hanging off that weren't quite right. One of them was this obscure thing that you've probably never heard of called the spectrum of blackbody radiation, which is basically when you heat up a thing and you measure the light that's coming off of it, what do you see? The worldview here predicted something that was absolutely wrong, but you know, whatever, it's just one silly thing. How can that matter? When the string started being pulled, the entirety of the worldview of that time unraveled. Not just part of it, the entire thing. And that led to, among other things, nuclear bombs, lasers, semiconductors, networks, etc. All that stuff came from pulling at this one weird thread that you would have thought, that can't possibly matter.
Once again, though, when you are looking at modern day science, I'm glad that he did talk about kind of pulling at a thread of something that was incorrect. It goes back to what Sagan was saying. But when you've compartmentalized so much of this information, and that is what has been done, okay? The idea that human beings have not created other types of propulsion systems and weapon systems, essentially, since World War II. Yes, some of the laser stuff has been put in the public arena, but a very minute amount is absolutely absurd. It is absolutely absurd. So then you also have to question, you know, with this scientific progression, how much of it is being utilized to set narratives, to falsify information, to control humanity, to control society, social engineering through technology.
But this thing, consciousness, this thing that you feel when you are you, is not only a hanging thread off the entire edifice of science, but it's a hole in science itself. Let me explain. The way science works is you have people, and they look at something, and they agree on what that thing is. And then they go back and they scribble a bunch of equations and say, hey, does this agree with what you saw? And you're like, yeah. So these kids are doing science now. They're looking at something, they're saying, hey, there's a frog down there. Yeah, there's a frog down there. It's green, right? Yeah, it's green. You can't do that even in principle with your own feelings of who you are, because someone else, say two other people, cannot introspect that thing that you do when you are you. When you pick up that thing and you have that feeling of being a thing, no one else can share it with you. So that means we can't do science on it. It's not amenable to the tools of science. And
I love him pointing that out, because so many of these people that have gotten into the world of large language models, artificial intelligence, robotics, bioengineering, really tried to cut their teeth with explaining what consciousness is. And it is literally, I think, the eternal mystery. You know, not just human consciousness, okay? Just consciousness in general, because there is a case to be made that obviously other animals, mammals have consciousness, but even biological plant life having consciousness to a certain extent. So what is that life force on this planet in this reality? Well, it's only going to be speculated upon, and it's only going to be a cheap replication or imitation of that, because you can't do actual science on it. And I think Rose gets that correct.
I find this fascinating, because what it means is that our understanding of the way the world works is horribly incomplete. Why does this matter? Every single thing that makes you who you are and how you feel and what you do and what you believe depends on what is this ineffable essence of you. Call it a soul, for lack of a better term. That thing that is you. Science doesn't know not only what it is, but it doesn't know how to deal with it. And a frustration that I've often had with the academic side of science is that when an academic scientist is shown something so horrible that it reduces their entire worldview into fragments, they don't say, that is the thing I'm going to wake up and solve tomorrow. No, what they do is they ignore it.
Sometimes they don't just ignore it, they attack it, right? They undermine it. They refuse to acknowledge it at all. It's usually refusing to acknowledge it, then attacking it. It's the same thing with truth, right? And then eventually it becomes accepted. Don't worry, we're going to go back to Geordie Rose finishing it up. But I want people to really understand what he's saying here, because this is where we're in agreement. While so many others are telling you that eventually you're going to, quote unquote, upload your consciousness to the machines, right? Dennis Bushnell talking about they become us and we become them. He's telling you we don't even know what consciousness is. We don't know how to measure it. We can't do science on it. Well, if that's the case, then how in the world would you ever be able to, quote unquote, capture it, not just replicate it, not just imitate it, but capture it, and then put it someplace else? Doesn't seem possible.
Just like those guys did back in the beginning of the 20th century. Why should we care about this thing? This is a big one. So, next time you hear somebody say, you know, AI is going to take over the world and AI is just like people, remember, that's just hype. It's not true. AI right now is just performative. Not only is it not like you, we have no scientific tools to make it like you. It's so far away that you don't have to worry about it at all. But the last thing I'm going to show you before I close is one of the systems we build. And I'm not going to answer the question I'm going to ask, but I'm just going to leave it with you. What would it take to convince you that this thing that I'm about to show you shares those feelings that you have?
So, again, he plays it, but you don't see it. But he's offering that same paradox that, again, Kurzweil talks about in The Age of Spiritual Machines. We don't necessarily have to recreate consciousness, and neither do these artificial intelligence entities that are being created, these synths, if you will. They just have to be able to convince you that they're conscious. So he's asking the question, what would it take for you to look at this and listen to this and think that this is conscious?
Hey everybody, on behalf of Sanctuary, I'd like to congratulate Asa, John, Nancy, and Peter on their induction today into the BOBC Business Hall of Fame. Being recognized by your peers in this way is a great honor, and I'm glad I could just be a small part of it. Thank you.
And thank you.
So there it is. I pay attention to that guy. I should get Jordy on here. I think that would be a really interesting conversation because obviously I think that we may have a lot of things that we similarly agree upon and believe, but at the same time, this is a guy that is out there trying to live forever, trying to create humanoid robots, working with our defense and intelligence apparatus. So, again, folks, you're probably not going to see this kind of stuff just about anywhere else. So I hope that you can thumbs it up, subscribe, share. We don't even have 100 thumbs up for those watching on the YouTubans. If you are commenting in the live chat, give me a comment down below as well. Please check out all the other alternative platforms out there over on X, Rockfin, Rumble. I got to remind you, I need your support. There are no more paychecks. Believe me, I loved having a producer, interviewing people on a daily basis, getting a steady paycheck. That's over. So now we have to go back to the model of many, many moons ago, and it's got to be you guys. $5, $10, $15, it means the world to me. Big donors, thank you so much. If you don't like the Buy Me a Coffee, there are other links down below, including the PayPal. I want to remind you, I am also a documentary filmmaker. All of my films are free. I think that they not only hold up today, but they are just as relevant, if not more relevant. Loose Change Final Cut and Fabled Enemies on 9/11. And then, of course, Shade the Motion Picture and Invisible Empire, A New World Order Defined. On the broader pictures, they are my magnum opus, my swan's songs. And as always, folks, you know the drill. It is not about left or right. It is always about right and wrong. I absolutely love you guys, and I will see you all on the flip side.